Alright, welcome to the next video in the tutorial series for Fractured Online. We're going to go ahead and move forward with a few other things. One thing I do want to point out is I went ahead and left my character in town while I was AFK for a little while I ate dinner, and my hunger had gone all the way down and I had actually died a couple of times. The reason I allowed it to do that is so that you could see that at some point your health bar is going to be blocked by this purple area up here at the top. And what happens is every single time you die, a percentage of your health is going to go away and be blocked from you being able to have your full potential of HP. The only way for you to clear that is for you to actually go sit by a fire in a town or your own house. So since we're in a town, we're in the starter town, we're going to go over to the tavern, which we showed before in the last video, where you sit down and do your talents and your abilities. Then we're going to go over to the fire, and what you'll see is once I sit down at this fire, this purple bar is going to go away, and it's going to allow my life to fill up all the way. It's also going to refill your energy. So now you see my energy is full, and my life is now full to the 2200 maximum that I have it set at. And before I started recording, I did eat one of my foods to stop myself from dying, but you can see I'm still low here, so all I have to do is right-click a food in my inventory, and it will fill up. And that's how you get your life bar to after you die to go back up. You have to go to a town. You cannot do this, does not work at a campfire that you build out in the wilderness. The campfire will fill up your energy, and it will let you change your ability and talent presets, but it will not fill up your life or unblock your life bar. Okay, so in this tutorial, we are going to go over kind of things that you need to know before you really go out grinding and farming your skills and abilities and everything in gold. You're going to have a couple of main objectives when you first load into the game that are the most important objectives to do. So first, I would expect for you to actually go into the ability list and look at all the abilities and try to come up with at least a general plan for your build. The ability menu is accessed by the little sword with the fire, and you can go over to the ability tab, and this will show you every ability that's currently in the game. I believe there's 197 of them, maybe 200, and this will actually open up. If you reset all filters and clear any of this out, it'll show you every ability in the game. Obviously, the ones that are colored in are the ones that you already know and you can use at any time. The ones that are grayed out, you will have to go get. The reason I wanted to show this is because I want you to start thinking about your build and what you're going to be. So let's just take, for instance, something easy. Like I started as a fire mage, so I already have fire abilities and some other stuff for mages. So let's just say like I decide that I'm going to build a pure fire mage. So there is zero reason in the world for me to look at things like Crippling Strike, because Crippling Strike is a knife fighting school that requires a dagger in your hand to be able to use. So if I know that end game I'm going for strictly a fire mage, there's no reason in the world for me to go get Crippling Strike unless, or at least early on in the game. So I know that I'm going fire. So all these different schools or class schools, you can click on them and it'll filter to just those. So if I click Pyromancy, you can see all the just strictly Pyromancy abilities from the Pyromancy school, and they'll be grayed out if you don't know them. But let's say there are other things that you will be able to unlock and use as a pyromancer. For instance, cryomancy. All of the different mage schools can be used by any mage. So you can have a mixture of fire, ice, lightning. Abjuration are spells that are like shields and dispels, protection from cold, protection from acid. So it's more of like spells and that it's more of like protection spells and dispels. You can go into necromancy, geomancy, which is rock and earth stuff. Restoration is your heals. There's also venomancy, which is poison. Vitromancy, which is acid damage, and druid as well. So you can mix and match those as a mage. Some things that you can't mix and match would be things like if you decided to be a two-handed mace, which would be like the Warhammer user. You wouldn't be able to do pyro and Warhammer because while you're holding a Warhammer, you won't be able to use the pyromancy spells. The reason why is because if you hover over any pyromancy spell, or any spell in general, it'll tell you what school it comes from, right? So all of the mage schools can be used by all mages. But if you look down towards the bottom of the first section, it says armor restriction, weapon restriction. Okay, that is super important for you to take a look at before you plan your build out. So the armor restriction for Fireball is light and medium, and you can use a big two-handed Warhammer with medium armor or light armor. It doesn't matter. So you would still be able to use Fireball in that instance. But if you look at the weapon restriction, it requires a weapon that gives you spell channeling. So if we take a look at our mage staff, you will see that this is a mage two-handed weapon, and the mage staff has spell channeling. Now this does not say it on the tooltip, but if we take a look at the crafting menu and we go to weapons and we click on any of these weapons and hover over the tooltip, it's going to give you the properties of that. The mage staff doesn't say spell channeling, but the mage staff can work with all mage spells and spell channeling spells. But if we take a look at that Warhammer, okay, so here's the Warhammer. If we hover over it, the school is mace fighting. And if you see under special properties down on the bottom section, the special properties of the Warhammer is bashing. Okay, so if we click on the mace, which is still in the hammer tree, and we hover over it, it's still the school of mace fighting, but this one is one-handed. If you look right above it, underneath the word mace, it says melee one-handed weapon, as opposed to the Warhammer says two-handed weapon. So this is a one-handed weapon in the mace school, but you look under special properties, it still gives you 20% bashing, which is less than the Warhammer, but it gives you spell channeling. So this is a way for you to be able to use the hammer weapon and still cast spells that require spell channeling. So if you wanted to, you could be a medium armor user with a mace with spell channeling and a shield with spell channeling and still cast pyromancy spells. So you could use a mace and a shield and still cast mage spells because these weapons and the round shield, you can see, has spell channeling on it as well. So that's how the builds and the skills are used together. So there are some restrictions. The restrictions are mostly going to be armor restriction and weapon restriction. Okay. The other restriction is going to be any of the straight up combat, like melee combat stuff, or physical damage combat stuff like swordsmanship, fencing, mace fighting, axe fighting, and archery. These schools require you to have that weapon in your hand to cast the spells from these schools. So if we go to knife fighting and you hover over crippling strike, it says school knife fighting. With the melee physical damage stuff, if it says school and one of these schools, you have to have that weapon to cast these spells. So even though it doesn't tell you that there's a weapon restriction, the fact that it's in the knife fighting category school, that is the weapon restriction. Same thing with hammers. Same thing with archery. So if we go to archery and I look at volley, school is archery. I can only wear light and medium armor to cast this spell. So if I have one piece of heavy armor, heavy boots on, I cannot cast this spell. It'll be in my bar down here, but it'll be grayed out. But even though it doesn't say that it is a weapon restriction of bows, that is the weapon restriction. You have to be using a bow to use any spell within the archery school. So that's like that with pretty much all of them. There are a few exceptions. If we reset all filters and we click on the very first one over here called Warfare, none of them are going to have a weapon or armor restriction. So you can be any armor type and any weapon and cast these. They're also not a particular school, so you don't have to have a. The school warfare is open to everybody. That is the same thing, I believe, with hunting. Hunting, let's see, net trap. The only restriction you have is light and medium armor, so it doesn't matter. You would think that this would go with bows, especially the archery class starts with both of these. It starts with spike trap and net trap. If you pick the archery class in the very beginning, but you do not have to have a bow to use these. The only thing that these say that you do have to have is either light or medium armor on. Again, if you have heavy armor on any one piece, you cannot use spike trap. Assassination. This is kind of like some of your rogue spells, but you don't have to be a rogue. What you do have to have is you have to be in light armor only, and you have to have a one-handed weapon. So what does that mean? If we go back to our crafting, the dagger is obviously one-handed. The mage staff, all the mage staffs are two-handed. The quarterstaff is two-handed. The bows are two-handed. The hammers, the mace is one-handed. The other two are two-handed. The club is one-handed and has spell channeling. So you could use a club with the assassination tree. You could use the club with pyromancy skills. Under the swords, the long sword is one-handed, and so is the scimitar. But the scimitar gives you spell channeling. So this is a way for you to build like a battle mage with a sword, a shield, and lighter medium armor, and still be able to cast spells. But the great sword is two-handed and does not have spell channeling. So back to our skills. All of the assassination tree requires you to have light armor and one-handed weapons to use any of these spells. So here's all the mage ones. That doesn't matter. Necromancy is all mage, all mage. Here's another one, leadership. Leadership can be used by anybody with no restrictions. It doesn't matter what weapon you have. It doesn't matter what class you're building. It doesn't matter what armor you're wearing. All of these can be used. Illusionism is going to be another mage. The mage, druid. I believe almost everything in here, or maybe everything, is spell channeling. It is. Okay. So the druid, even though you start off the game, if you pick the druid starter class, you start with hammers. You really need to stay with a one-handed hammer, because if we take a look at the crafting, the basic primitive hammer is one-handed and has spell channeling. Okay, that's why druids start with it, and so is the mace. The Morning Star is two-handed and no spell channeling. Same thing with the Warhammer. So the reason why I wanted to go through that, so make sure you're taking the time to go through the spells and understanding that you can't use every spell with every set of gear build, and that you need to plan accordingly. Okay? So the next thing to go over is, okay, you sped through, or you made your character, you went through the tutorial, and you just you saw my last video, and you were able to just speed through it, and you got done with the tutorial in about 15 minutes or less. You got your full set of basic gear and your weapons, and you load it into the game. What do you do after you figure out, hey, this is kind of the class that I'm going to try to go for in the beginning? You need to realize also, as a side note, that you will be able to learn and gather every skill in the game at some point. You're not capped on how many abilities you can learn. You will be able to learn all 200 of them, and then you can change your build as time goes. Um, Obviously, we went over this before, but the more KP or experience you gain, the more you rank up, which unlocks more talent points to use in the talent trees. And the other thing to go over that a lot of people don't realize, and actually the game doesn't even tell you, is let's say, remember when we created our character, I said the best character or one of the best characters to start with, as far as a starter class, is the Pyromancer. But what if you came into this game thinking, man, I really usually in games like this I play like a melee brawler tank. And I don't really care to go mage that much. I'd rather be a tank or melee brawler or whatnot. But I spec into max intelligence and max wisdom and constitution, and real my mid game build or my end game build is going to be mostly strength and dex. Okay, so what do I do? So you can see that my strength is 8 and my dex is 8, which is the least that it can possibly be. But if I'm going into like a strength and dex build later on, you can see there's a respec button here. When you push that respec button, you can now change your talent or your attributes. But what it's not going to tell you is when you hit confirm, it locks you into this for 1 week. You do not get another respec for a week after you respec one time. And each week you will get a new respec. You can also brick your character. I found this out through the Discord because someone accidentally did this. They clicked respect. They didn't put any points in. See, it says total respect points to change it. They didn't put any of this in. They meant to hit cancel and they accidentally hit confirm. And it respec them to 8 and everything. So they didn't even get to use their points. If you do that, you will completely gimp your character to the point to where you might as well re-roll or drop or make a second character or drop the game for a week because you won't be doing much with no stats. All of your abilities, every ability in the game the damage and the duration and all that stuff is multiplied based on these stats. But you can respec. Just know that it's once per week. So that's that. So let's talk about when you load in from the tutorial, what's the first things you should do? First thing that I want to do is find a horse. Okay. You'll see while you're running around town, like this guy here, he's got a horse. You will get around the world much faster on a horse. So that's step one. Step one is to get a horse. Step two is going to be to start getting gold and to start farming spells. Okay? If we open up our map, if you started in the starter town to the south, which is here, really close to you in these green hotspot areas are going to be the goblins. And up here in the yellow, I believe these are the bandits. If you started in the north, which is right here, these here are goblins as well. So both starter towns can start hitting their goblins, and then in the middle between the two towns is the bandits. Goblins and bandits will give you all of your early game and most of your mid game, almost all of your mid game talents or abilities that you're going to want to use to start fleshing out your end game build. All of the areas that you see, like with these legend altars, these areas, this area, you can see these are yellow and red. These will require larger groups. It's highly recommended that at some point, once you kind of figure the game out, you actually go join a guild The easiest way to do that would be to go talk to any of the governors of any of these towns. The towns with the little keep symbol is owned by a guild, and that guild leader is the governor of the town. At some point, it's still too early, nobody's doing it yet, but at some point, guilds will actually siege other guilds' towns, and they will fight to take that town over and take its resources and stuff. So you can make a guild and not live or be a part of a guild, and you could just live in the outer little villages, and your guild at some point can take this town over from Hangover. Um, so step one is going to be go find a horse out in the world. Step two is going to be to start killing these goblins since they're close by. They give me skills that I need, and they're going to drop gold. So what do we need to do to tame a horse? We're going to go to our crafting button down here. We're going to go to our consumables, and we're going to find animal net. So what do I need? First thing I need is I need 5 rope. To create 5 rope, I need 5 plant fiber. And when I craft the net, 5 rope is going to give me 10 animal nets. This is going to be plenty to capture 2 or 3 horses. You really don't need more than one because you're not going to drop it when you die, at least for the first 40 hours, and you're not going to drop it when you die ever unless you're a red player. So we need rope, right? So what we're going to do for now is we're going to start heading west out of the southern town and start heading towards this goblin area for step 1 to get a horse. As much as possible, try to stick to the cobble roads. The cobble roads will let you run the fastest. Once you start getting into the grass, you will actually slow down, as you can see here. My movement speed. But on the cobble roads, you'll see this little buff up here that says I get a 30% speed boost while I'm on the road. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go look for plants to gather, because the gathering plants will give me the fibers that I need along with whatever the plant reagent is. One thing you will notice is if somebody already picked that plant, there's a respawn or regrow timer. Also, short food items that you pick up, like mushrooms and potatoes and carrots, those do not give you fiber. Okay, so if I pick this mushroom, you can see I picked it up super quickly. I did get KP for it because it's the first time I ever found that item. Here's some blueberries. New resource discovered, so I got KP. I picked it up, and you see that I got 1 blueberry and 1 plant fiber. So there's the blueberries I picked, but because I picked the blueberries, I got the plant fiber, even though the blueberries is just food. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run around, and I am going to gather the plant fiber that I need to craft my rope. I'm going to craft the rope, and then craft the animal net. Here's some more flax. Okay. So now I have 11 plant fibers. I know I need to, for me to craft this animal net, I need 5 rope. So we're going to go to rope. We're going to craft 5 of them. Go to your consumables, click on animal net. It's going to take all 5 of your rope to create 10 animal nets. And in our inventory, we now have animal nets. Okay. So the stuff I'd like to hold on to, I usually put down here at the bottom row so that my loot and stuff fills up here. So I'm going to take my animal nets, and you're going to have to put it on your hotbar. So I like to usually just put it under F. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of run around and try to find a horse. So I'm either going to speed this video up, or I am going to restart it once, or I'm going to cut out and come back on once I see a horse on my screen. But you're just going to run around until you find a horse. When you run across other stuff like the animals like wolves and bears and stuff, just kill them. All that stuff adds to your KP and starts getting you more skills. So we'll be right back when we find a horse. You see, I killed a goblin. It dropped 11 gold. This is how you get gold in the early game. If you fight things after a while, you're going to see that your health and mana are kind of low. You can use linen bandages to speed up your regen, but the easiest way to do it is to press K. The letter K is by default. I changed mine to number 1. You'll sit down and you will regen much faster. 220 life per second and 210 mana per second. While I'm running around, randomly I'm going to pick up some small stones. That's because if I run out of energy or anything, I can make myself a campfire. You need 10 small stones and 5 tree branches. There's a horse right there. I'm going to go ahead and press F to trap it. And then all I'm going to do is click on it. And I got it. Now sometimes it'll fail. You just click on it again. Usually after you do it a second time, if you still didn't tame it, it'll run off. And all you have to do is press F again to throw your net again and trap it again, and you can keep trying and just chase the horse down. I will tell you the horses are faster than you, so having a movement speed ability is beneficial when chasing down horses. So if he would have outran me, I would just relocate, press F to trap him with the net. Click on him, we got it. So we'll open up our inventory and our character menu. You can right click this to equip it. It goes into this slot here. And then now it is actually like a piece of gear. And when you die, unless you're a red player or evil, you do not drop it. So you'll always respawn with your horse. You can see down here at the bottom, A is the button with a little horseshoe. Press A. It'll summon your horse. And you'll be that much faster. Okay, so how long did that take us? So here's the starter town. I came out of the town. I came up this main road. And what I did was when I got here, I went around this city because horses like to spawn in like these grassy areas. I looped all around here, up here, all around here, and when I got to right here, I found my horse. So that whole process took me less than 10 minutes, and I now have a horse. A lot of times, the new players will come in and they'll spend days running around not understanding how to get a horse. And then the horses, people are selling them on the auction house for like 50 gold or more. And you just starting out, you don't have that much gold unless you come out, kill some goblins and bandits, and then go back and buy a horse. It's just not worth it for 5 or 10 minutes worth of running around. You'll find one. So what we're going to do from here is we're actually going to come down and we're going to go into the this what you see as a combat hotspot. This is goblins. Goblins are really good, especially for mages, because you can grind up a lot of mage spells here. Frost spells, fire spells, poison spells, all that stuff can be a lot of stuff can be grinded here. So this is where we're going to go. So our step 1 of gaining a horse is complete. Our step 2 of gaining gold and skills and abilities will be here. So let's go do step 2. I'm going to do a little bit of that till I gain one new spell that I want, and then we'll cut this video off. As you see, mobs have a leash range, so once they reach a certain range, they'll turn around and run away from you. Like most games, most MMOs like this. Okay, so we have now arrived at the goblin farming hotspot. So we're going to come in here, we're going to kill goblins, we're going to loot them, we're going to get gold, and we're going to get skills. And I'm just going to show you a little bit of that while we're here, and that'll be it. So like these dogs, I can take on 2 at a time for sure. And this is the power of the Pyromage. I can kite things, and I can take on things 2 at a time. Let's go ahead and loot this pup. You might as well just kill everything and loot everything in this area, because everything will give you either stuff you need, stuff you could sell, some stuff you could destroy, but also the skills and abilities. Don't forget, after you fight, if you need to, you can always sit down. And you'll regen a lot faster. But we can kill this guy. Oh, there was another one over here. You can see I'm not even using my mage armor, which I probably should be, but this is very easy for a pyromancer, just do the amount of the damage that you do. And you have a stun, and you have major damage AoEs. So let's go ahead and turn mage armor on. We're going to sit down. Some abilities like mage armor, they'll block off a piece of your mana, so you can't actually get to all the way full mana while it's activated. You just see one combo and a couple auto attacks and he's dead. Look, you see I discovered new creature, Goblin Medic. So we'll come back and we'll sit down and we'll regen really quickly while I show you the whole point of doing this. Obviously I've been out here and killed just a few things. I'm already at 150 gold. I've got some other stuff that I've picked up from them. And if you go to the little knowledge book icon at the bottom right, and you go to your bestiary, you can see anything with a star by it is something that you either just learned about. You'll notice that in this game, the mobs don't have name cards on them, so you don't know that you're killing a trained wolf or a bandit marauder or an goblin archer. You won't know that until you kill it. And you also won't know that until you actually have to like learn what the mobs look like, because there's no pictures or anything, and there's no name tags. But just for the heck of it, let's take a look at Goblin Medic. You can see that I have 2% knowledge in Goblin Medic because I've killed 1, so that 1 kill got me 2%. And if I scroll down, it'll tell me skills and abilities. These are the skills and abilities that the Goblin Medic has and uses, and if I kill the Goblin Medic enough, then I will be able to gain these skills. And the way it works is for like this mob in particular, once I get to 20%, I will get Cure Wounds. Once I get to 40%, I'll get Mage Armor, which I already have. When I get to 60%, I will get Cure Poison, and at 80%, I will get Empower. With this mob in particular, it's 20, 40, 60, 80. After 80, you don't need any more knowledge to get the abilities, just to max it out. Some things need 100% to get the last ability. Let me see if all of these you can see have 4 abilities, but there's some that have 5. The ones that have 5 are 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100. So you need to fill up the knowledge bar all the way to 100 to get the last ability. And the really powerful spells in this area are going to come from what they call the Goblin Shamans. If we take a look at the bestiary, you can see right now I know about Goblin Archers, Enforcers, Medics, and Trappers, but there are Shamans in the game. Those Shamans have totems that you can place on the ground. They place it on the ground, and they do a lot of damage, and they're really good. Also, like the Fire Shaman has Fireball, so once you get it to, I think it's either 60 or 80%, you'll get Fireball, which is a huge damage increase. And at 100%, you get the Fire Totem. The totems in the game, there's a lightning totem, a fire totem, a frost totem, and a poison totem. There are other schools, right? Like geomancy, but there's no geomancy totem. There's no necromancy totem. It's just fire, ice, lightning, and poison that you'll find. So that is, um, so that should be your first steps in Fractured Online. Load, get done with the tutorial, speed run through it, just get your basic armor and weapon, load into the game, take a look around town, get yourself familiar with how the town's laid out and stuff. Go find a horse, trap it, go to the goblin or the bandit areas, and start killing mobs. Kill mobs until you've gotten um, either 2,000 gold or 2,500 gold, and or you have learned a bunch of new spells. Keep doing that. In our next video, once we have 2,000 gold, I will show you how to buy a plot of land and start building your crafting stations and your house on it. I appreciate you watching. If y'all have any further questions, please leave them in the comments, and I will try to address those in future videos.